Yo, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? We're still letting Elizabeth Lane do the live stream. So,
Yeah. Dude, I'm getting ready to fight for Sparta. I don't know if you got my message, like this music you have going on. Like it's like okay, let's go to war.
yeah,
So,
man, that's what it feels like. We're at war. We
I
gotta, get the,
know.
the music going and get people feeling like. I mean, look, when I say that, Israel themselves, they have said they're going to war. Right? They're in a war with the Eighth Front, and
Yes.
that's what I mean. We gotta come correct. You know what I
They
mean?
are at war. Yeah, they are at war and they just can't chill. Look what happened. Trump thought he had a peace deal. Finally, I got the Iranians on board. Everything is good. We're going to get out of this. Oil prices are going to go down and then boom, Israel steps in and ruins everything again.
Well,
It's
it
like
feels like a lot of these games are for the money in Wall Street, But welcome in, everyone. I'm Danks. This is Elizabeth Lane. I'm sure you know. And today we have a great show for you. So everyone knows what they signed up for when you come and watching us, right? We're here to spill facts, controversial stuff that a lot of people don't talk about, especially in mainstream media. So first up, we're going to be talking about Miriam Adelson, APAC, the money architecture in this country. She's the largest donor in America, and she doesn't just write one check. She's in a node of people or in a system that's basically wholeheartedly responsible for the way the RNC, the Republican National Committee and Party, just the company of the grand old party in general, is really operated and financed by foreign money. And Miriam Adelson is the lead of that. And again, she is one node, though, in a system that elected 318 federal candidates in a single cycle, right? We follow that money. We're going to be talking about her. And also, secondly, China, the same Adelson fortune that bankrolls American elections does not come from America, right? We know this. The most recent Las Vegas Sands SEC filing, which Elizabeth was telling me about, says, in their own words, 74.8% ownership in Sands China now.
yep.
And in the Macau special administrative
We'll dive
region.
into this. Let's start from the beginning so people understand like what those are first before we get to
Yeah.
like SEC right away, because FBI was involved in this as well. So I got to start with an announcement, guys, before we get to Edelson and all the shenanigans that she's up to. So Danks and I will have Sunday live stream together from now on. It will be a thing. So every Sunday you can get on and we'll have some famous guests, sometimes very, very interesting guests that are, down with this nitty gritty stuff and know what's going on. So we're going to try to make this a consistent thing.
Hopefully. I was going to tell you, I might have to make it to what we're doing today. We might have to talk about the day, but we're definitely going to be doing it.
Okay.
Thursday.
Wait, today's Thursday. Wow,
I meant to tell you. I forgot to tell you.
Yeah.
Sunday
Okay. Thursday. It might be Thursday. I guess we have to talk about this first. All right. So, but
we're
there
definitely
will be
doing
like
something weekly.
Yeah, something will be there for weekly for you guys to tune in and listen to us and everything we do. Okay, Miriam Adelson. So Miriam Adelson has this image of a very strong woman. She recently got a medal from Trump. I am sure all of you have seen it. She's very proud that she received this like special medal from the White House and specifically from Trump. And she always played it so that she's this tough woman that, self-made, all that. She's nothing like that. She's not self-made. She had a husband called Sheldon Adelson. Now, who's Sheldon Adelson? Sheldon Adelson is Jewish. Jewish people have this tendency that they kind of marry into the family with each other. So another Jew is a thing. I don't know if you guys know about this, but it's a big thing in Israel, not just Jewish traditions, but big thing in Israel that your family wants you to marry another Jew. And the only time I see this tradition being broken is when we're talking about big money, like a lot of money, right? So great example would be Ivanka Trump, who was not Jewish. She had no real Jewish, roots anywhere. Like Trump family is not Jewish. And yet Jared Kushner, who respect Jewish traditions, still married Ivanka. And then Ivanka said, well, I just, accepted Judaism and now I'm Jewish. Okay, well, it doesn't really work that way. And that's another thing that people get confused about. So is Judaism just a religion, or are we talking about the roots and genetics as well? Because seems to me that Jewish people are arguing for both. They are arguing that no, we belong on this earth because we are Semites, and we belong in Israel, and Israel belongs to us because it's in our genes. But they wouldn't do a DNA test to prove that, right? So another.
Well, I started looking into that. Sorry to interrupt, and because I was curious as well. So what it looks like is they are basically adopting Judaism as a race religion, right, or
Yes.
a religion
Yes.
race.
Yes.
And so you don't have to be Hebrew or origins of Abraham or Moses in order, or whatever back then in Canaan, essentially, to be Jewish. And so they've created, to my understanding, and I could be wrong, this double standard, not just double standard, but double something entendre, I don't know, where if you want to be Jewish, all you have to do is become a Jew through religion, and then you gain the same perks as being a Hebrew Jew, essentially, is what they're trying to. And that's what they've been doing all along. And we've seen there's a YouTuber named Mr. Squiggly that's recently exploded because he's talking about a lot about this. And in fact, the synagogue of Satan, you know what I mean, where there's just fake Jewry going around, that that their prime minister Benjamin Netanyahu is one of these fake Jews, so that's they've already seen that it can work, and now they're moving it to mass scale.
Yes, I agree. And like I said, this tradition that Jews want to marry another Jews, that has been long-standing tradition in Jewish family, somehow always gets ousted and banned when it gets to a lot of money. And you see that in Russia as well. There are a lot of Jewish entrepreneurs that came out of nowhere, guys, absolutely nowhere, and ended up with the biggest Russian billionaires and millionaires in the industry, which is something that always gets overlooked because most people don't know Russian market, right? They don't watch Russian entertainment and so on. But it's the same over there. It's exact same thing. And I'm starting to think that we are dealing with a clan of some sorts that has a very, clear plan, and they're executing it. That's my personal opinion. But back to Miriam Adelson. So Adelson is actually Israeli. She's not American in any shape and form. She was born and raised in Israel. She constantly talks about how loyal she is to Israel, and mostly to Israel, not to the United States. Yet she married somebody who built his entire career, money, and fame in the United States. Another Jew, Sheldon Adelson. Now, Sheldon Adelson is the owner of Las Vegas Sand. Well, he's passed. So he already had a lot of money where Miriam Adelson married him, and together they kind of expanded their empire. But here's where it becomes very sketchy. Las Vegas Sand doesn't just operate in Las Vegas, okay? They got their fame and money and all that in Las Vegas gambling business, so exploiting Americans' weaknesses and addiction and so on, just a terrible industry to be in. But let's put that aside. Let's put a moral aspect of all of this aside. And let's just focus on money and what happened with it. So they took the money they got from Las Vegas business empire, and they went to China. There is such a thing called Macau. It's a Chinese territory. And when China opened their markets for world gambling businesses and kind of became free enterprise, Sheldon Adelson went over there and bought up everything and everybody. So here's the problem with this. You might think, okay, so guys expanding overseas, what's the deal? Well, the deal is that Macau's business setup and the entire environment in Macau is differently structured. What does that mean? You have to be in with Chinese elites and politicians to actually make your business happen. So otherwise you are out of business. You are not going to make it. That means that you are very tight with Chinese government and organized crime to even have a business in Macau. And that this has been proven. We are going to go into this, right? So there's a guy called Richard Suen who kind of exposed all of this accidentally. Here's what happened. Las Vegas Sands tries to get in Macau's business. They understand, Adelsons understand that they need Chinese elites and officials to bribe them or to somehow convince them to hand over the business and allow them to operate, right? But they need a middle guy. Without middlemen, nothing happens. There's always somebody, a third party operating when it gets to billion-dollar deals. And this is the guy called Richard Suen. Chinese descent, as I understand. He was a Chinese businessman who orchestrated all of this for Adelsons and who had all these ties to Chinese elites and government. And he stepped in and he was like, well, I'm going to utilize my contacts in Chinese government and I'm going to get you guys closely intertwined. And that's exactly what happened. And Adelsons dominated Macau. I mean, Adelsons became real power in the United States because of China, because of the money they made overseas, okay? So now most of their money comes from China, and you know this as well as I do. When your money is coming from a certain state or country or whatever, you're kind of bound to obey with their rules and whatever they want, because that's your livelihood, that's your money, and you cannot function without it, all right? So that was very, very big. But Suen ended up being unhappy with the share he got out of the deal. He said, well, they lied to me. They cut me out of the deal. They didn't pay me enough money. So he ends up suing Miriam Adelson and Sheldon Adelson, so the family, Las Vegas Sands. And guess what? Long story short, he wins. But this lawsuit exposed some very shady stuff that I believe was set up, and this is my personal belief after looking at the court documents and what we found. I believe it was set up to launder a lot of money. And there was like these big chunks of transfers that no one could explain, no one could justify. And they were like, something is going on here, but we don't know exactly what's going on. So because of all this attention that this guy brought on Adelson's, FBI and SEC got involved. Now, there is such a thing called like Foreign Corrupt Practices Act in the United States. And what does it do is it doesn't allow people like Miriam Adelson to bribe other countries' officials and get in business with them with illegal ways. Does it make sense? So what happened is these two organizations got involved. Now, FBI, and they started investigating Adelson's business in Macau, China, because there was so much smoke and so much irregularities that they were like, okay, this needs our attention. And in 2016, the case was settled. Why was it settled? Because so many things came to light and so much corruption was evidently there that Las Vegas Sands was like, you know what? We better pay up millions right now and nip this in the butt before we are exposed. And that's exactly what they did. In 2016, they settled the case and they said, well, yeah, you know, guys, like there's some smoke and a lot of weird things are going on, but we're just going to be okay with saying Adelson's personally never bribed anybody, but there's shady business, there's shady business going on with the Las Vegas Sands, and we're going to settle with that. Just like Jeffrey Epstein case, just like every other case. So,
well,
yeah.
Well, go ahead if you want, and then I'll.
Yeah, I just wanted to put it all together. So in conclusion, guys, you have an Israeli born and raised billionaire who's funded by China, calling shots, funding our president. I mean, just sit with that for just a moment. Who do you think this benefits? It certainly will benefit Israel. Why not? China has no beef with Israel as for now. Israel is nothing for China. So if China, even for like slightest, steers Miriam Adelson towards the direction where our country gets to be a victim, Miriam Adelson will have no problem executing whatever China wants her to do. And that's the most dangerous part. You have practically have a Chinese agent in a way, because she's funded by China, and who's also loyal to Israel, not to you. And this woman is paying our president a ton of money and is one of the largest donors for the Republican Party. I mean, you make your own conclusions now,
Yeah, I'll go a little bit deeper into this. So going back to, I think it was April 7th, 2016, the Securities Exchange Commission, the SEC, announces that Las Vegas Sands has agreed to pay a $9 million penalty to settle Foreign Corrupt Practices Act charges. All right. It was a Foreign Corrupt Practice Act charges that they were committed. This is the company that Sheldon Adelson built and that Miriam Adelson now controls. Yes. And what was the case about? The SEC found that Las Vegas Sands moved more than $62 million to a single consultant in China and Macau, and that the company kept inaccurate books and frequently had no documentation or approval for where that money went. So who was the consultant? Per the SEC's own order, a man who claimed to be a former Chinese government official. That was the consultant. What did the money do? It acted as an intermediary to obscure the company's role in transactions inside of China, including buying a basketball team in the Chinese Basketball Association in a country where gaming companies are not allowed to own one, and buying a building.
And that's Richard Suez that I was talking about, and Leonard Alves or Alvarez or something like that. So these two. And yeah.
Exactly. And at one point, the company could not even account for over almost $1 million it sent to the guy, and it kept sending him millions anyways. Now, what I'll say is
continued for years.
For years. The thing is, the SEC made no finding of bribery in this, and no finding of like actual corrupt intent. I don't know how they got around all of this. The Las Vegas Sands neither admitted nor denied the findings. The violations they settled were books and records and internal controls. And in plain English, the official's finding is not that they bribed China. The official finding is that they moved almost $100 million to China-connected consultants and then could not properly tell anyone where it went. And so that is filed fact, right? Now, what does it mean? Now, layer 2016 on top of today, because they are the same machine, just 10 years apart. Today, bless you. Today, by Las Vegas Sands' own SEC annual report, the company owns 74.8% of Sands in China and operates inside of Macau's special administrative region of the People's Republic of China. Miriam Adelson controls the parent company, and then the bulk of her roughly $32 billion fortune, the fortune, mind you, that Trump put at $60 billion on the Knesset floor, is generated on Chinese soil under a Chinese license that runs until 2032, and that Beijing reviews every 5 years. So trace the money. I always say follow the money. The money starts as a bet on a casino floor in Macau on Chinese soil under a Chinese license, flows up to Sands China, up into Las Vegas Sands, into Miriam Adelson's wealth as a controlling owner. And then $105 million of it will flow into Preserve America PAC and into the Republican Jewish Coalition, into the machine that elects American presidents and removes American congressmen like Thomas Massie.
Right, exactly. And guys, I want you to think about how dangerous that is for a second, because you have foreign operatives, because they are foreign operatives. They are not born and raised in the United States. They are foreign operatives getting their money from our biggest adversary. Okay, China is our biggest adversary at the moment economically, because we depend on them. So you never want the power that you so heavily depend on to control anything in your domestic affairs at all. And that's exactly what's happening through Miriam Adelson. And you know what's amazing, Danks? When I published this piece, I think I was the first one to do that. When I published this piece on X, all of a sudden you had this silence from trolls. Like no one can oppose any of this. And I was like, okay, they can't even try, because all of what we are saying is a iron freaking fact. So what they're going to say, that no, her money is not coming from China? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And this is the same country, guys. This is the same freaking country that we constantly say we are at war with, and we're not going to allow China to dominate Venezuela. We are not going to allow China to bully us around. Really? I think you're allowing China to do whatever the F they want in your country, including ousting Thomas Messi through Zionism, and it's unbelievable, but it's true. It's true.
So, I mean, the question is no longer is whether China runs money through this opaque connected channel. We know that it did, right? So the only open question is how much, how recently, and to whom. Now, Beijing is not stupid. China is not stupid in general, right? They know exactly who she is, Miriam Adelson. They know that she's the largest donor to the presidency of the United States and the government in general politically. They know her company has a federal record for murky China payments. And in December of 2022, knowing all of that, they handed her a renewable 10-year license anyways, right? So
for a reason.
There's two reads to that, right? There's two reads. Either Beijing decided to help the biggest funder of American politics and decided that she's not a threat to Beijing's interests. Think hard about what that says about the policies that money can buy. Or read two, and there might be others, but read two for me is Beijing decided it is useful to hold that renewal over her head for her fortune. And that here's the thing about leverage. You never have to actually pull the leverage for it to work. The dependency is the leverage itself.
Exactly.
So a person whose empire is dependent upon Beijing's signature is a person Beijing will never actually have to call to pull leverage on, because she already knows who's actually in control. So a lot of people think she's the one who controls. Well, it looks to me, if she wants to keep making her money, China is actually in control, which is very interesting to all this.
Of course. And you know what's amazing? Chinese government, I don't believe that they looked at us as enemies in the beginning, especially after Kennedy died, and they went through a lot of domestic refreshment, let's call it that way. I don't think they looked at us as enemy up until we kind of made them enemies. And now they're like, okay, well, if this is the game, then we're going to play it as best as we can. And Miriam Adelson is one of the tools. And I can't believe that this woman is funding the president of the United States, and no one in big media is talking about her ties with our biggest adversary. Nobody.
Well, they say that it's our biggest adversary. You and I were talking last week about what was the real reason that all of these technocrats went to China, And it's just interesting when you know that connection. It's like, did they go to China for Miriam Adelson? It's like
well, it's multiple reasons, right? Thanks. It's never just one reason. So it's always when we are talking about $1 billion game, it's always multiple profits involved. No one is bothering to do it for just one reason. It's always multiple reasons. Now back to Miriam Adelson and how that ties into Cuba, guys. And your mind will blow in a second how we're going to tie all of this in. And then
do you have the clips from? We should show the clip after. Once we explain, I want you to explain, because now my audience for sure, and probably a lot of yours, has watched Candace Owens.
Yes.
They've watched her explain and just almost mock Nick Shirley, right? And so I've been watching Nick Shirley for over a year, maybe longer, before all the Minnesota. And then when you told me about, or actually I saw Candace Owens mentioning it, and you kind of said, yeah, Nick Shirley is a fraud in your opinion. And so then I watched the video from that perspective of him working for the government to appease a younger audience or a global internet audience. It was so obvious to me that this kid is a fraud.
Yeah, and I texted Candace too right away. Once I looked into this Cuba thing and Nick Shirley and step by step tracked his actions, I immediately texted Candace, I think you're right about Nick Shirley. Go with it. You're right. In my opinion, from what I looked at, I was like, this guy is a plan, period. And I didn't have that opinion because I don't watch freaking Nick Shirley, some teenager in a hoodie. I watched only for clips before, some cutouts from his so-called investigation, right? And then when he came on my radar one time, another time, again. Then I was like, you know what? Now I'm going to start watching this guy. So I dived deeper into his work, and I discovered that whole scam in Minnesota, the whole like the Somali thing, has Mossad footprints on it. And not just that, but I realized that this guy is either a useful idiot working for the government and the deep state, and he doesn't even know, or he's actually a propagandist and he knows what he's doing, right? I don't care which one of this it is. What I care about is he's a propagandist, whether willingly or unwillingly, right? Let's dive into that. So you might think, why the heck are we talking about Cuba after all this time, right? What do we want from Cuba? Cuba is rich in minerals, no doubt about it, but we already have multiple other countries to take these minerals from. Is Cuba worth the fight? Is Cuba worth another conflict? Heck no, if we're just talking about the minerals. But what if we are not just talking about the minerals and we have bigger picture in mind? Let me explain. How many of you know what was going on in Cuba during Kennedy? Thanks, do you know?
Well, remember? I mean, there's various things. Why don't you go ahead and tell us?
Yeah. Okay, so Cuba had a dictator.
I mean, they tried to, the CIA was literally trying to put Jesus over the, I mean, they've done so much shit in Cuba, it's ridiculous. Like,
yeah, I mean, Cuba
is the propaganda attempt from the CIA, like over and over again. It's just crazy.
We abused Cuba beyond measure, but I'll explain something really quickly. And I think it will put a lot of things in perspective for people. So there was a guy called Batista in Cuba that was a CIA-controlled puppet. He was in it with mafia as well. He was a terrible, bloodthirsty dictator that we put in power in Cuba. And we actually covered for him, right? It's exaggeration to say we put him in power, but we certainly aided him, and then we protected him because he was our guy, okay? So he was so terrible that at some point, even the US seized like this direct aid to him because there were pictures that came out. Somebody broke the news, I can't remember which journalist it was, that he was torturing students. He imprisoned students and he was torturing students and beating them up, and it was terrible. So anyone who opposed him, he would go after, torture, imprison. The similar situation is Israelis today. So finally, there is this guy that thinks, you know what, Cuba had enough. And his name is Fidel Castro, who in history is absolutely misrepresented. If I told you, like, what are your thoughts about Fidel Castro, you would be like, oh, wasn't he a dictator and terrible man? What about Che Guevara? Oh, wasn't he a revolutionary crazy? Like, no, actually, they were patriots of their country. Both of them are incredible individuals. And they decided we've had enough of the United States corporate world sucking on Cuban wealth, and we're going to kick them out, period. Now, Castro was a nobody, okay? He didn't have an army. He didn't have anything other than his ideas. And Che Guevara was similar. Che Guevara didn't have anything. They didn't even have guns. I mean, how are you going to conduct a revolution and oust the CIA puppet from power without any guns or any aid, right? But somehow they managed it. I strongly advise you guys to read about it because it was brilliant. You know what tactic they used, Danks? They pretended they were way more powerful than they were. So it was like a fake it until you make it deal.
Yeah.
So they pretended when they would have this like officials come and see Castro when he was already a famous figure but didn't have the power, he would instruct his people to come in the room, interrupt the meeting, and give him fake analysis on where their little armies were. So they didn't have people, so they made it up. They would come in and give like a fake, briefings or something, interrupting the meeting. And that worked, actually. That actually worked. People saw that, I don't know where this guy has the army, but he must have the army, So finally, they were super smart. They managed to go against the monster called the United States of America and corporate world, and they ousted this demon from their country. So let me tell you what they were doing in their country, this corporate world. And I'm going to give you the list of corporations as well. So the United States owned Cuba without directing owning Cuba. So we had all these American corporations taking Cuban wealth and building casino brothel empire in Cuba. Can you imagine that? Like casino brothel empire, dirty, shitty things that they brought to Cuba. And finally, Castro was like, nope, we're not going to have this. He managed to conduct a revolution. He ousted Batista. He closed down the casinos. He said, Cuban nation is better than this. We're not going to do this shit. He kicked every American corporate entity out of Cuba. And it worked for a while. Up until, unfortunately, Cuba's geolocation is not very convenient. So they are located in an area where we can actually put them in the corner. So if we wanted to, we can isolate Cuba from the world. And, how can you survive when you are a tiny little, island and the ginormous, the United States is fighting you and completely isolates you, sanctions you, doesn't allow its citizen to trade, all of that eventually broke Cuba. So it's kind of our fault that Cuba is in a situation that it is today. And it's funny because Castro, who we should have sided with, by the way, when he conducted a revolution, we should have sided with him and said, you know what, this is great. Whatever you want to build in Cuba, we are here. Let's make it a democratic state. Let's make Cuba our ally. Let's continue some businesses, maybe not shitty brothel casino businesses, but we can do other things, right? That's not what happened. We were making $2.7 billion every year from Cuba. $2.7 billion, guys, every freaking year, to today's money, by the way. So, of course, for them, it was like, well, why would we lose this money? Who is this freaking Castro to kick us out? So the CIA went into action and designed multiple plans to kill Castro. Because that's what we do when we don't like the candidate and he outs mafia and, United Fruit Company and Hilton and all these corporations from the United States. We were like, well, let's kill him. Why are we killing the guy? Well, because, he doesn't like us and we're going to kill him. That's how we act in the world now. You know that there was 100 and something assassination attempts on Castro by the CIA?
Yeah, you told me that.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead. What were you going to say?
They poisoned his Cuban cigars. Didn't work. Yeah. They tried to poison with a bioweapon. They tried to poison his swimsuit. Didn't work. And then they paid this guy who was a waiter who was supposed to put poison into his chocolate smoothie or something like that, some drink. And this moron put the poison in the fridge. And when he was trying to get it, it glued on the ice and he broke the package. So, this is all real, guys. It's all real. And so they constantly failed in these assassination attempts, right? And Castro survived. But he knew, even when he was alive, he knew that Cuba wouldn't be able to sustain, this freedom without any assistance. And this is where he started to steer towards the Soviet Union, because the only other power who could help Cuba was the Soviet Union. And we know this. And now it's been proven when Russia sent Cuba the ship full of oil to lighten Cuba back up, when we took their electricity and cut them out from, their livelihoods, and took the electricity out and killed a bunch of people in hospitals, right? So it was Russia who sent oil to Cuba and gave them electricity back on. So they made a right bet. The problem is Russia is a million miles away and it cannot always help, right? It just can't. And so why do we need Cuba now? How does this story tie in with Miriam Adelson? Remember what we told you guys? Miriam Adelson has a gambling empire. One thing she knows that she learned from her husband is how to make billions in gambling empire. And you know what is the most efficient way to launder money, whether it's for the CIA, Mossad, or whoever? There's only two things that launder money better than anything. And that is an independent bank and what? Casino, right? So two entities that can help you with illegal money and cash. It's casino business and a bank business, right? So it doesn't take a genius to figure out that they want to recreate Cuban gambling empire in Cuba. So that's why they want to go in Cuba, invade Cuba, overthrow the regime, and bring little Havana back as they had before with all this corruption and mafia, because that's who they are. They are new version of old mafia, and they want to operate in Cuba exactly how they used to, right? And that made 2.7 billion every year. Why not? Miriam Adelson knows the business. She lobbied Trump. So yeah, we are going to Cuba, and we are going to recreate what we had in Cuba and flood Cuba if we are successful with all this shit. And that brings us to Nick Shirley. You want to take on from here, Danks?
Yeah. So look, we've seen this in the past. You explained this very well. I'm going to go a little bit deeper. If you share my screen, I want you to bring up, I have a Nick Shirley video prepared. I'm going to explain first though, but I want you to see what's on the screen. Okay. And as I talk through this, you'll see why. Now, this is what I want you to know is we go through history and we see how it repeats in this country. Okay.
Right.
Because I'm not a paranoid person. Some might say I'm a conspiracy theorist. I've earned those stripes, and I've been right many times on what I've thought, even if they haven't come out and fully said it today. So what I will say is this. In the past, we've had someone named Zunzuneo in 2009 to 2012. The U.S. Agency for International Development, the USAID, you all heard of it, USAID, secretly built a fake Twitter for Cuba. Okay, that was in the late 2000s. They called it Zunzuneo, Zunzuneo. Okay, slang for hummingbird's tweet or something. 40,000 Cuban subscribers at its peak was what it was using, which is a lot for that country. Now, you build a young audience through that. That was their plan. You start with your own internal documents, build a young audience, and then once it hits critical mass, you start pushing political content to spark demonstrations and quote, renegotiating the balance of power between state and society, stuff like that. Then you have the second thing, which is the Travelers Program. So within that same era, you started seeing in October of 2009, USAID dispatched young people from Venezuela, Costa Rica, and Peru into Cuba. And they worked undercover. They posed as tourists, and they scouted for Cubans that they could turn into political activists. And in one case, they actually set up a fake HIV prevention workshop that their memos called it the perfect excuse for recruitment.
Right.
And they told the Cubans that they were harmless NGOs, but they were not. Okay. And then you have hip hop programs as well. So when I say hip hop programs, literally the USAID secretly infiltrated Cuba's underground rap scene, recruited unwitting Cuban musicians and rappers, and tried to use them to spark a youth movement against the government. If you haven't seen Didi Got a Podcast, he did an episode with I think it was either one of the Bone Thugs and Harmony, and how he explains how the rap industry is controlled by the government and by these elite political people that are behind the scenes that are not even in our government that we know. So they have infiltrated every level. So now target young people, use a cover identity, use a tourist, use an NGO, an artist, some harmless person or entity, and then you hide the source of the money and you manufacture sentiment. Okay. Not that it only happens there. It also happens here, and it works in tandem. All right. So we look at Nick Shirley. He's a 24-year-old, I think, and he calls himself an independent journalism and goes all over and exposes all of this corruption, which seems to fit perfectly into the current narrative that's either about to come up or that is in mainstream media, right? So he goes to Cuba, and per the Cuban government, he's on, as you can see on the screen, journalist activity. All right. So this is part of their USAID tourism and stuff like this. Okay. So this is how they get into Cuba. Because right now, me and you, I can't go to Cuba. You know what I mean? I'm not allowed to go to Cuba. So how do you get there? Well, you need a little bit of inside help, or file for one of these, or take a cruise ship for another country, Mexico, whatever.
Yep.
Now, the playbook has been documented. Okay. We've seen it in the past. And what I'm really trying to say is that we have to be careful when things fit almost too perfectly. And we're going to play this. I want you to see what the perspective of sending someone to another country to manufacture sentiment in the United States for a war that they say is already coming, or a hostile takeover, right? Trump has already said it. Looking at Cuba, we could just take Cuba. We could take Cuba. We could do whatever we want. So it's like, now with that in mind, and I'm not telling you Nick Shirley's on any payroll. I have no proof of that, and I'm not going to invent one, but I don't need one, because the only thing that is happening is the delivery. And if we watch the mechanism of the delivery,
right,
back then it was shell companies and
well,
fake
you have
apps.
a circumstantial case too, Danks. You have a circumstantial case, and by that I mean that every single time we needed to manufacture consent, Nick Shirley goes out and busts the Muslim scam, not Israeli or any other scam. He busts the Muslim scam because we're pushing for Iran war. Okay. And all of a sudden you have Minnesota, Somali scam, Somalis are Muslims, and look at these terrible, terrible people exploiting your country. And somehow he completely misses the biggest scammer in the United States, which are Jewish communities. And, we know this from other journalists who actually exposed the Jewish scam, but Nick Shirley specifically went for the Muslims right before Iran war. And that's not enough. I mean, every single time they need something, like, for example, take London, and then remember where you were so you can continue exactly there. So we know that Tommy Robinson is a Zionist figure. This is not a freaking secret anymore. Like, even Tommy Robinson himself doesn't come out and say we know he's pro-Zionism. So we know that Tommy Robinson is a figure that Jewish Israeli Institute prefers. And this guy is trying to conduct a revolution in London, in England. And guess where this young teenager, Nick Shirley, ends up all of a sudden? He ends up in freaking London, aiding Tommy Robinson.
The Tommy Robinson, yeah.
Yes. So every single time there's a Zionist agenda at play, somehow Nick Shirley finds his way there and becomes the limelight of the day. Are you kidding me?
I want to address something, because somebody might say, it was Nick Shirley an independent journalist? I would say yes. He has been doing this work. It might have come to, he might have somehow broken. I think that he's been manufactured now, or at least being sent in certain directions and doing his work and then getting help. Because I want to show something else. All right. Remember, he went to Brazil. If you see my screen.
Yes.
You need to understand this right here, okay? When you see how, you just have to go watch this, okay? And then you go watch someone like Arab, okay? This is how it actually, he went, I show speed and Arab, this guy, he's a real OG. If you know YouTubers that travel, Arab, he shows actually how he got into Brazil, how it works, the dangers of it, and everything else. Not this way just doesn't seem authentic. I don't know what to say. The whole time, this is not something that you would typically see somebody be doing in Brazil. Okay. And this whole episode with Arab and I Show Speed, there was not one firearm. It doesn't work like that when you go down there. And you have to be very well connected in general anyways. You know what I mean? So
absolutely,
it's just a very different, you have to go watch both episodes and you'll actually see one authentic version of it and the other just go watch, So anyways, moving into, now that we have the sentiment of what it is, what are they trying to ask people? The most telling of this is when he talks to people, what is he saying? Okay. And watch how he uses his words. All right. So I'm going to go, you ready to play this? I'll play it. Let's do this.
Yeah.
Where are the people at? ¿Dónde está la gente? No hay nadie aquí en la calle. No hay nadie aquí en las casas. ¿Dónde está la gente?
The problem is that there's no gasoline. It's not easy to move. Anyway, we have a lot of limitation for work.
None of the gas stations are even in operation right now because there's quite literally no gas. When the United States captured Maduro, their main supplier of gas and oil was shut off. So the country right now has hardly any gas, and if you do want to get gas, you have to wait in.
That is how they actually create a chokehold, by making it so they knew that Venezuela was giving gas to Cuba.
Yep.
We went and took the gas. Like, they created the situation back in Venezuela even before.
Of course, absolutely. Because you gotta, so if your goal is to get Cuba fully, then you have to take the tools away from it first. And then, they just fold it by their own. That's just how it works. I hope Cubans are smart enough not to bend the knee here, Let's go on.
To buy gas here in Cuba. Before they captured Maduro, was there gasoline in the gas stations?
Always. It was easy. Nowadays it's really bad. But it was easy to get gasoline.
And for you,
Every day you can go to the gasoline station and buy it normally.
Well, like, whose fault was that?
Normal.
Obviously, it was our we did that, right?
Well,
I just
we
want to keep. I want
Yeah.
to keep going to the parts to where when he's talking to people, literally, I don't know if they are finding these people for him, but there wasn't one positive thing said. I don't know a country that you
what
go
he's
to.
what he's doing is there's always going to be, no matter, even if you go to freaking Luxembourg now, Danks, like Luxembourg, the perfectly set up country, you're going to find people who are unhappy with the government. So what he did there is he probably went to hundreds and only picked the 2 or 3 that actually said bad shit and didn't show you anything else, because that's not his objective. That's what he did.
And from this moment on, we noticed we were being followed by Cuban police and their intelligence after the word got out I was asking people about communism. Inside of a communist country, there's no such thing as freedom of speech or freedom of the press. In fact, if you speak out...
But I'm just going to go there on a journalist, documentation.
Yeah,
That's going to work.
You know what's funny? A friend of mine just 2 years ago, and I'm going to put down a link when we are done with this video so people can see. A friend of mine went to Cuba, and for the same purpose, to figure out what life is looking like in Cuba, right? He was never followed. Nobody from intelligence followed him. You know what that tells me, Nick, Dickhead, Shirley? That Cuban authorities know that you are a bought puppet, and that's why they are following you. What differentiates from you and my friend? He has a huge audience. What is the difference between you and him? Why was he not having the same issues, and you are having issues with the police? Either you're lying to us that police was not there for you and you just like got them in the shot, or if they are, then that tells me that Cuban authorities know something about you, and this is why they are following you. And he's not the only guy, as much as he wants it, but he's not the only guy to visit Cuba and document their life. So get out of here, you freaking, what is it, 17-year-old,
Well, yeah, I'll show a couple more here. So.
out against the regime.
And what's the reality of living inside of communism? ¿Qué es la realidad de vivir en comunismo?
Son presidentes todos, son jefes todos.
El gobierno.
De hecho, sí. Así que funciona.
Hay mucha gente que está muriendo
Que están muriendo
por el comunismo.
por eso mismo, porque no hay pastillas, no hay nada para darle a la gente.
And what would be your last message to the people about living life in communism?
Bueno, el último mensaje que daré es que lo más malo que hay aquí en Cuba es el comunismo, que viven todo en comunismo. Eso es lo más malo que hay aquí en Cuba ahora mismo.
And we're not doubting that communism is bad. Obviously, it is. I'm not a proponent of that.
I am doubting that. What do you mean? Communism is just a regime. What do you mean it's bad? Really? Because I have hold on.
Yeah, because
hold on. I have a suggestion for freaking Nick Shirley. How about you go to Miriam Adelson and ask something about communism? She seems to take money from communist China, who is light years ahead of us when it gets to domestic affairs and infrastructure. So if communism is so bad and, they can make money in communism, how is that China manages to do that perfectly? So no, it's not the regime, it's the people. Communism is just an ideology, just like capitalism, just like fascism, okay? It's just an ideology. What distinguishes these things from each other is who's in power. Period. And this has been a long-standing freaking smear campaign about communism and capitalism and all of this. Oh, capitalism will eventually die out and it's a cutthroat capitalism. The reason it is a cutthroat capitalism is because we have psychopaths leading it. It would not be cutthroat capitalism if we had decent people leading it. Okay, so the same with communism. I'm sorry, but you don't know anything about communism. I will guarantee you that, Danks, you do not know anything about communism. I come from a communist country. I watched my grandparents who lived in communism and who preferred that over anything that I have in the United States. That's their words, not mine. They lived it, they loved it. Okay, so this propaganda that it's the regime itself is bullshit. It is the people and who's in charge in it. Period. So communist China seems to be doing very well. Not only they have wealth, they also have our wealth. And without them, we would be digging in the dirt. If China didn't buy out our debt, we would not have food on the table in America. So don't tell me that communism leads to poverty and crime. It doesn't. Bad leadership does. Or a very good psyop from another country and the attacks from another country through intelligence agencies can bring you down as well. And we've seen it over and over again. So I'm sorry, but I don't buy this bullshit about it's just the communism is the problem in Cuba. No, it's not. The United States is the problem in Cuba. Okay? Just saying. You're welcome.
Yeah, I mean,
to this all day long.
no, I mean, I would probably push back there. You know, I would say the thing is that the idea that communism is just an ideology really is just a theory. All right. The only problem is who happens to be holding the wheel. It's not really that in my eyes, right? That is the trap, because if it is just about bad actors, then the next guy could do it clean. And that is the lie that I think that continues to get people to run for it. The problem with that framing is that every other ideology, you can point to a version that worked. You can point to a functional democracy somewhere. You could point to a functional monarchy somewhere.
Hold on.
There's a functional republic somewhere. There's
a
a functional communist country, obviously, as we could see.
Stop for a second. You can't just throw words. Find out functional democracy anywhere. Please do. Give me.
I'm just telling you that you could. I'm not telling you exactly where.
No. You have to back it up. If you're going to argue right, then argue right. Point out functional democracy anywhere.
I'm not arguing against whether there's functional. I'm not saying that I'm here. I'm not here to argue whether it is functional democracy or not. I'm saying that there are functional all different types. Okay. So if we have, you can't just say, okay, if you want a functional democracy, then we'll say Switzerland is a functional democracy.
Switzerland is not a
what are you talking
about?
And I'll pick it on purpose because it's a direct democracy.
It's not a democracy, dude.
Citizens vote on actual laws multiple times a year through referendums.
Can you
ask me? I'm telling you.
Switzerland is not a democracy. Switzerland is bank-controlled country, period. Banks own the vote, period. Just like
China is a communist country that's run and owned by the government. You know what I mean? That's what communism is. You know, in this type of system.
The United States is a capitalist country run and owned by the military-industrial complex. Military, period. Okay, like argue. So what's the difference between China and the United States? Do you have democracy?
There's a big difference when it comes to capitalism, when it comes to business ownership, when it comes to land ownership, when it comes to anything ownership. China is the one that.
Then explain to me, how are you in worse condition than China? Have you been to China, dude? Like,
we are in a better situation than China. We're not in a worse condition than China.
You are in a worse.
Might be technologically in certain different ways, but absolutely when it comes to freedom of speech, when it comes to freedom of the American way, when it comes to me being able to start a business on the internet and make money and live life, that you can't do that as easily or at all in many regards in China.
Okay,
I have not been. I have been. Yes, I have been to China. Sorry, I've been to Hong Kong.
Where
have you been? I've been to Hong Kong.
Okay,
but
so
it doesn't matter. I've been all over the Southeast. I've been to Singapore. I've been to Bali. I've been to Indonesia. I've been all over.
Singapore is a very different country. Singapore.
You know what I mean? But I've been to China as well. I've been to Taiwan. Okay, I mean, I've been to Taipei. So it's like.
Explain to me this: average lifespan and average life. Let's say.
That's different. No, that's different. What do you mean? Obviously, the food choices, the food that has been crammed down our throats, obviously, is a different story. When we're talking about food, it's a very dynamic situation, this conversation, because communism and the way that it operates there in China with complete control versus how we live our lives on a day-to-day basis is what I am talking about. Okay. I am not at all interested in having our business operations being ran by a foreign government and not foreign government, by China, by my government that doesn't allow me to move up if I want to. You know what I'm saying? And that is an issue. Or have land how I want to.
Hold on.
And I didn't want to get into
something
this
that
communist
you're saying. Okay, you're saying something that is factually incorrect. I'm sorry, but it is. So you're saying that only government owns stuff in China? That's bullshit. There are billionaires, Chinese billionaires, that are in business, are independent entities, and they do whatever they want up until they challenge the government, okay? Up until they challenge the government. How is that any effing different from the United States? There are a ton of millionaires in the US, but as soon as they challenge the policies, you know what happens to them? What happens to Messi? They are ousted, their businesses are shut, they are completely out of the game. That's what happens. So I'm sorry, but you're no different from China. The only difference is above all the problems that we already have that China also has, above all the problems, you have one extra on it, and your government poisons you. Your big pharma is absolutely untouchable. That's not the case in China. Every Chinese health is light years ahead of yours. I'm sorry, but that's true. So if we're comparing these regimes, then you have similar problems in Chinese people. It's not going to be exact same because it's two different cultures and nation. You have similar problems as Chinese people, but you have some extra too above that. So I'm sorry, but you can't say, you know what, like China is a communist regime and controlled regime, and you're not. You're absolutely controlled. And in fact, you're so controlled that your own president cannot make a fucking decision without Zionism involved in it. That's how controlled you are. You're so...
I'm not arguing against that, right? I'm not arguing that the president isn't involved in foreign bullshit. But when you're talking about business ownership, because I'm a capitalist, when you have business ownership, you're telling me I'm wrong. I'm not wrong. What do you need in America to actually create a business? You need a couple $100 for an LLC and an idea, and then the means to do it. You don't need to know a single politician. I don't need to have permission from a party. I don't need a government partner sitting on my board. I can own 100% of 100 companies today if I could spin it up. The land it sits on can be mine. The state cannot wake up tomorrow and take it because I posted something they didn't like. If a regulator comes after me, I can take the government to court in front of a judge who doesn't pay for the guy I'm suing, and I can win. You spoke. Let me speak. Now start the same business in China. First, you would have, for a lot of industries, you cannot fully own it. The state requires a local partnership. The partner answers to the party. Above a certain size, you're expected to have a Communist Party committee inside your own company. Okay, so the party gets a cell inside the business you built, watching everything that happens, everything that's said. Then the land is not yours. In China, you do not own land. You lease it from the state, usually for a set number of years. Okay, on a clock that runs out, and then you have to renegotiate with the same government that could crush you at any time. That's the same situation that Miriam Adelson is going through right now. Then there's no real court to run to because the courts answer to the party, and you can't sue the state and win because the referee and the other team are all the same people. And here's the part.
First of all, you can sue the state. It has done before. You can look it up. It has done before multiple times. Second, the same government, this is the difference between communism and capitalism. The same government that is in your business, the reason it's in your business, it also helps you with that business. That's the idea of communism. I'm sorry, but that's the whole idea of communism. So you allow certain things to happen and for the government to be in your business so it can help you as well as destroy you. Now that's your choice to accept that, and Chinese people accepted that. For them, that works. Who are you to dictate to them that, you know what, things should be different? Guess what? Let's take Soviet communism, okay? My grandparents got 3 months vacations on the nicest freaking resort. My grandma was a housewife, never worked a freaking day, never had to worry about bills, never had to worry about medical condition she or her family might have, because it was all covered by the same government that you're criticizing in China right now. So it's give and take, Danks. Chinese citizens decided, you know what?
That's why I said it's dynamic. You know, I know it's give and take.
Yeah, so hold on. Then you can't demonize communism for exact same benefits and minuses as capitalism has, just in a different face. So
Why?
you're
Why
saying,
can't I?
hold on.
Because I can't. It's not that.
Well, you
like,
can
this
say,
is the
hold
thing.
on. You can criticize this as your personal level. You can say, I prefer capitalism over communism. That you can say. But you cannot say communism is a bad regime and capitalism is great. No. You can say, I prefer one over the other, which is your choice. See, my
I guess if
grandparents-
you prefer not having freedom over pretty much your entire life and having the government, and if you don't see that's bad, then that's fine.
What?
I prefer my
problem
freedoms
is
to
you don't
be
have
able to
freedom
have
either way.
my property, my land, my business, to be able to start it without asking anybody. I prefer that, and I think that's good.
problem
And I
is-
think not having that is bad.
The
that's
problem
how you
is
wanna put
you
it.
don't have freedom anyway. That's the problem. So here's where we agree. And there's only one thing we agree on. So for me, Wild Wild West is acceptable because I trust my intelligence and I know I'm going to survive because I'm a survivor. So if I have a capitalism crazy regime where I had to fight to get my way through, that's the environment I thrive in. I know I'm going to make it. But if you are someone else who prefers to set up life like in communism, which is government helps you, it provides doctors, it provides education, which, by the way, is a very tested out model that actually works. It works in many ways. Look at China. So if that's who you are, great. But what my issue is with your pronunciation of things and how you articulated it, it says communism is bad and capitalism is good, and that's bullshit. Communism and capitalism are two different sets of rules and ideologies, and you can pick whichever you prefer. Now, again, I'm personally free Wild Wild West person. Let's fight it out kind of person. So that's why I'm living in a capitalistic country. My grandparents were different. They believed that something like healthcare, something like food, something like these should be guaranteed. These should be their right. And they had the right and they loved it. What they didn't have is freedom. And they were like, you know what? We don't want full freedom. We prefer to be taken care of. Now, that's their idea of how to live. And it was their choice to make that. And they were happy with it. As soon as Georgia became a capitalistic country, they were more unhappy than ever. Because now you had to worry about doctors, bills, you had to pay everything yourself. There was no help from government whatsoever. So you can demonize these people. You have no right to.
I'm not demonizing them.
Yeah. So what? But you did say that communism is a bad regime. No, you can say I prefer capitalism, but both work in their ways. And China.
I mean, I think most, if you want to have your own life, would prefer a non-communist party.
Well, that's again debatable because.
And there's also a reason why there's only like one communist party that's done anything that's. But the only reason is because the way they've managed their money. And the way they manage the dictatorship or the communists or whatever is they've done it right, you know, and I'm not saying they haven't done it correctly, but I am saying that it's not ideal because when you look at the freedoms that we do, people say, oh, you're not free. I see it in the chat. You're not free, Danks. You don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, I am very much free. I can say and do whatever the fuck I want.
Really?
I don't go and work. You know,
really?
I do this. I work from home. I have multiple businesses. I make 6 figures a year and I have nobody to answer to.
Okay,
you know what I mean? So it's like, you know, and another thing is like life expectancy.
Back on one thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Get on here and you say I'm free. I can say whatever I want. And before we started this podcast, I told you I'm gonna call for assassination of certain people, and you were like, "Oh, don't get me demonetized." No, don't.
Yeah, I can say whatever I want. I'm not talking about on YouTube. I can go on the street and say whatever I want. I'm talking.
Yeah, this is not YouTube.
YouTube is a private platform.
Oh my
you know
gosh!
That, right?
YouTube
is a private platform.
My point for me.
This is not a public platform for me to go on the street and say whatever I want. I recognize that. I've never said freedom of speech should be allowed. Like wholeheartedly, you could just say people should be killed on YouTube.
Agree.
I don't agree with that.
We can agree together on one thing right now. Okay, we can agree together on one thing right now. You seem to be like me, Wild Wild West person, who's like the best man wins, right? Great. But you have to admit that you don't have that in America right now. You are not free. You have Israel controlling your government completely. By that, I mean the deep state. And guess what? Not a single person from Epstein list is in prison. The reason you're free, Danks, is because of the same reason millions of Americans are free today. You know what that is? You're not that important. I'm sorry, but it's true. Neither am I. Guess what? One time I challenged like the big dogs. I did say this story before. I went to this Georgian talk show, and they were trying to conduct a revolution in Georgia. And I told them the truth about previous president who was a CIA puppet. I explained how it happened. Immediately, they sent 2 men literally knocking at my door, threatening me. 2 people, 2 men. And they were like, you know that you can be declared as a domestic terrorist and blah, blah. So no, you're not free. And someone as unimportant as me compared to like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson. So I'm sorry, but no. And as soon as you become Tucker Carlson, you know what they're going to do? They're going to start an investigation into you like they did to Tucker Carlson. So I'm sorry, but your illusion that you're free because you have 30-something thousand followers, okay? As soon as you become 1-point-something million, that's going to change. So you're not free. You're only free-range chicken. That's how free you are. You're a free-range chicken who thinks that he's in a wild.
I'd rather be a free-range chicken with 30,000 followers than not. You know what I mean?
No, why not? Because even not, here's what a Chinese person who lives in communism and is happy right now in China would counter that. Really, you'd rather be a free-range chicken who's worried about how to make money every single day than have like a oversight on your free range, whatever location you have, and have guaranteed food for your kids, high education. Like you know, you're not going to die from an accident if you get in a car wreck tomorrow because the state will take care of you. So those are the debates that these people have, and they should be listened to. Because what I believe is not our model and not Chinese model are perfect. In fact, both of them are flawed. And what we can have is a perfect middle ground when we have bigger government than a private sector, which I'm totally for. I always advocate bigger government over a private sector because you can vote government in and vote them out. You can totally conduct a revolution and throw them out. What you cannot do is you can't even touch a private sector. Sometimes you can't even.
That's the thing with communists is basically as a private sector. Like you can't.
Communism is government. Communism is not private sector.
It's operated as a private sector because it has its own people that have their own decisions and nobody gets to say what happens.
You can see these people. I disagree. You have more private.
It operates as if it's private, but it's
they can operate all day long as private. But let me explain something to you. If I asked any American right now, who's really in power in your country? Who's really in power? They were like, maybe Larry Fink, Larry Ellison, because definitely not Donald Trump. Is it some general with 4 stars? If I ask somebody who's in power in China, you know what the answer is? Xi Jinping, period. You know your enemy. That's the difference with big government. You know that once Xi Jinping is gone or you oust him, things will change because the clan is out, okay? So you don't get that luxury in the capitalism. Because in the capitalism, all these private organizations that are influencing the government by staying in the shadows, you never see their faces. You don't even know who these people are and where the money goes. You can never fight an enemy you cannot see. So yes, I'd rather have a bigger government so I can see who these mother effers are and one day I target them, whether it's through revolution, whether it's through protests, then have some psycho corporations that are doing their deeds behind the scenes, okay? So we disagree on that. Now let's continue with the.
I will say one thing because I want to address like the actual when you're saying America is worse off, Americans are worse off than China. In which ways? Like, what are the top 3 ways that you're saying? Like financially, like health wise, like
well, first of all, financially and health wise for sure. Like financially,
what proof? How can you prove that? Tell me how that's true, financially specifically.
First of all, China owes your debt. Let's start from here. You are in pocket of China. Tomorrow, China decides that you're not going to live well and you're not going to live well. Did you watch Trump's tariff war with China? Why do you think he cowered? If you were #1 richest, most thriving country in the world, why do you think your president cowered with Xi Jinping? You know why? Because
I see things very uniquely, but go ahead.
Well, I mean, you can see things all the way you want, but the truth is that Chinese people can afford whatever they want. I've never seen this happen before in my lifetime. Chinese people go to Munich, Germany, and buy German made. They go to Munich, Germany, and buy German made. You know what Germans do today? Germans buy Chinese crap. Like, they can't afford their own country made shit in the stores. It has never happened before. And Chinese people come from Hong Kong and from Beijing and other places, and they buy all the best. Now, you can talk all day long that they are worse off and they don't have money. You can walk in California street, my friend, and see all the homeless people. You can go and see who's dominating the OnlyFans when it gets to girls, the flashing their boobs out. It's not going to be Chinese girls, okay? It's going to be the American girls.
Oh, there's Chinese girls.
There's always Chinese girls.
But
if you're making, like, if we're talking numbers,
I can make a phone call, we can go to Vegas real quick or LA, wherever. I got plenty of Chinese girls on speed dial. That's nothing. That's normal.
Well, first
what
of all,
do you mean? There's more Chinese and Mexican street workers. Look,
dude,
the thing is that what you're talking about, the debt of China. Okay, you want to talk numbers?
Yes.
How much debt does China owe in the United States debt?
I have to check.
We're
I don't have that
$37
on the
trillion
back of my
in debt.
head.
We're 37 trillion.
Head.
Okay, we're 37 trillion in debt. Okay, they only own 700 billion. All right, Japan owns more than that.
Yeah, no shit.
Okay, so they don't. When you're saying like that can be dismantled. What you're saying is they control us and they own. That's not true.
They definitely control.
Right? And it's actually shrinking.
Hold on.
Right? China peaked at 3 trillion back in the early 2010s, 2012 or 13.
Hold up.
And also, our GDP per capita is 7 times higher than China.
First of all, who's your biggest trading partner? Just look it up for me, since you are about numbers. Who's your biggest trading partner?
Who's my biggest trading? What do you mean?
Like the United States biggest trading partner. Please look up.
Well, let's look it up.
Mm-hmm.
The United States biggest trading partner is number 1 is Mexico, Canada, and 3rd is China.
Thank you. So you're literal neighbors, and then million miles away, a country of China. Oh, I wonder why
because
that.
they've put a bunch of businesses over there.
Yeah, no shit.
And the reason why is because our businessmen have decided to open businesses over there and use slave work. And that is allowed in communistic over there in that government. It's like there's a lot of bad that comes with it. You know what I mean? I'm not saying it's right.
Again, Danks, here's the thing. You can argue all day long who's worse off. And I'm telling you that both countries are equally worse off, if not more, right now with us. Because you can say that, hey, there are lots of problems with capitalism, but at least we are free, right? And now we can't even say that. Because I would even take that. I would take that. You know what? We can be one of the biggest partners with China. They can own our debt. They can do whatever. They can control Miriam Adelson. They can do whatever. But you know what? At least we are free. No, you're not. And that's what pisses me off. So if I'm going to deal with the wild, wild west, well, then let it be with the wild, wild west. Okay. And I'm happy with it. But it's not. It's only freedom up until a certain point. And that's where I have a problem. So if you're going to pursue capitalism, then pursue capitalism. How come that in your country and in my country right now, when it gets to big companies like Boeing, like, for example, whether it's what is the name of Halliburton and previously dressers, known as dressers, how is that for them capitalism doesn't work? Every time we have to bail these mother effers out, we pay for them. You and I did a data center episode. Who pays for these data centers? Is that capitalism? I'm sorry, but no, you don't.
No. That's not capitalism. That's very different.
That's my point. So you're not even living in capitalism and you're praising something you're not even living in. So, dude, I'm
not praising it. I'm not praising it.
Yeah, but you're saying
I never praised
it.
All I'm saying is it is better I believe that it is better to live in this country than in China because of all of the things that I've said, plus a whole books of things that I could say.
Again, your personal opinion, I would argue that's your personal opinion. There are a ton of people that go to China and live there and love that. So again, to me and to you, we are used to what we are used to. And this is how we like it, right? Well, we don't like it because it's not capitalism, or we are not even in pure capitalism, but it is what it is. But for many people, they would not touch the United States. And I know a ton of people like that. They don't want to come here. I mean, some of my own best friends, like they're like, F the United States, we can't live there. Like, it's a preference. So every time you come out and
I mean, I've been all around the world. I've been all around the world. Everywhere, pretty much every time I get back to the United States, I'm just glad to be back, because everywhere is a shithole. Everywhere is a shithole. I mean, you can't, if you've been around the world like I have, you know that almost everywhere is pretty much a shithole. If it's not a shithole, it's controlled beyond belief. If it's not controlled beyond belief, there's no opportunity. It's like, but in this country, it's at least a nice balance of being able to do the things that we want, make the money that we want, start a business if we want, or just go get a job and then you have to go work in the workforce.
This is like what shocks me. Why do you imagine that other countries are not like that? Like, Georgians make more money than average American right now. If you compare with the magnitude of the United States and country of Georgia, only 3 million, only 3 freaking million, they live with better standards than I do in the United States. And I lived in both countries. I'm sorry, but it's true. And that shocks me. That shocks the heck out of me, because it was not the case somewhere around 15 years ago. Okay. And now it is. And it's like, how did we get here? So your assumptions that other people live worse off in the other than United States, that's just not true.
I mean, I've seen it. What do you mean it's not true? I've fucking seen it.
Name the countries you're talking about. Please do.
All of them.
Oh, no,
Every
no,
single
you can't.
country that I've been to.
So you've never been to Georgia,
Costa Rica. I mean, you name it. Costa Rica, Mexico,
Costa Rica. Okay,
Bali. Everyone loves Bali. It's a shithole. I've been to Singapore. There's only it's wherever it is. You know what I mean?
Third world
doesn't
countries.
matter.
You're naming
Europe.
third
You know,
world
it doesn't
countries.
matter.
You're naming third world countries. I'm
you have
sorry,
certain places in the EU that are great. I'm sure Georgia. I've never been. My grandfather's from Georgia. I told you before. But they left, you know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know. I mean, I don't have any desire to go anywhere over there anymore.
I left Georgia, but that doesn't mean that I left it because it was a worse off country.
You don't see people like leaving this country for another country ever.
People, what are you talking about? Oh my gosh.
Sometimes you do.
America has the biggest exodus.
But not like
America has the biggest
like
exodus right now.
Countries.
Google it.
You know what I mean?
Google it. America has the biggest exodus than ever before. The Americans are actively leaving the country. Actively leaving the country.
Every country has that actively.
Again, you can't say one thing and then counter your own self. I just told you it's a preference.
But I'm telling you that it's not like you don't hear of everyone leaving the like it's different where how it was in Georgia, or how people had to escape Iran in the 80s, or how people are leaving Dubai because bombs are flying in the UAE. It's like,
okay,
you know what I mean? That's a very different. That's what I'm trying to talk about, or what I'm trying to mention is that is the type of leaving I'm talking about. Why did they escape Iran?
Why did they escape Iran? Why? Because communism was there? No, because the United States fucked it up. It literally conducted a coup.
Yeah.
It fucked it up, and so was it a regime? No. So we're back to the United States being a problem. No matter what you do,
I agree. I can agree with that.
Yeah. So. Now, are we talking about the regime, or are we talking about an aggressor over the other side attacking you? Because if we're talking about the regime, then I just explained to you, it's a preference. You can't argue that life in the United States was better than life in communism for my grandparents, because for them, it was great. For them, it was great. So you can argue all day, but you can't change.
I mean, it could change. It could change. Right now, it's not worth leaving.
Of course. So again, it's preference for Chinese people who are millions, and love being in China. They accepted the regime. They embraced the regime. By the way, they condemn Taiwan, many of them, and we do too. This is what people don't know. We actually recognize one China policy. You know what that means? You know what that means? That Taiwan is part of China. That's what it means. So for those people, you can talk all day long that you don't like it, but they like it. Okay? So I'm sorry, but it's not about you or me. I already said we prefer more wild, wild west. Cards are, at your disposal. You can use them as you want. If you're smart, you'll survive. If you're not, you'll die off. Great. I'm okay with that environment. But the problem is we don't even have that in America. We have a weird mix of oligarchy that bails out itself every single time something goes wrong with the Boeing or, Halliburton or some Raytheon, then we have to pay for them. But if something goes with my business, will Trump pay for it? Fuck no. Excuse my language. So no, you do not have freedom and you do not have capitalism. That's my dog. Sorry. But yeah,
you got your dog riled up at me now.
I know. So yeah, we can move on. We can agree to disagree. We can have our preferences and we can move on to major problems. Like, for example, Israel in the United States. That is part of the reason why we do not live in free world. And I'm going to play something. Actually, did you want to finish like Nick Shirley or should we move on?
No, we could move on. It's fine.
Okay. Yeah. So, before we got on this live stream, I was saying that Israel is a major problem in the United States, and it is to the point where it has become a national security threat. I think we both agree on that. Here we're in agreement.
Yeah.
Good. Thanks.
We agree on most things,
Okay, good.
You have, so the thing is, I haven't lived in some of these other countries. I can only go from being there for like weeks or months at a time, right?
Yeah.
So your experiences globally are different than mine, right? So we see things differently when it comes to that. But like, people were watching us go back and forth and they were like getting all worked up like it's a personal thing. You need to know that Elizabeth and I can go like this and we're still gonna laugh and hug at the end. It's not
for sure.
And that's how you see everybody debate with Bays, same thing. So anybody taking it personally in the chat, you guys should probably just
chill out. Yeah, exactly. Well, we love this though. Thanks. Like
it's important for people to hear these perspectives.
For sure, dude. And I keep looking for people for my show. I mean, you saw me invite Blake and Erica and all these psychos. Like, do you think I'm loving quality time with these people? No, but I want them to challenge us and say like why they are right? So debate is almost as important as freedom, because sometimes I discovered that I'm wrong. I was wrong with nuclear energy argument, for example. I always say this, like I kept pushing for wind and solar up until somebody made much better argument and said, no, you have no freaking idea what you're talking about, woman. And here are the numbers to back this up. And then I was like, holy shit. Okay, I believe you. Yeah. Like I checked, I was like, no, nuclear is the way to go. Unfortunately, it is the way to go. So
I mean, we could all literally be having a nuclear power inside of our home like this.
Exactly. Exactly.
I mean?
Happy and
it would be like $5 a year or some shit, crazy cheap,
Totally.
But yeah, I think going into the new world order or 2030, or if you wanted to, were you headed that way?
Yep. So I was just saying what Israel does in Gaza and how like absolutely horrified you should be. So should I play this clip real quick? You haven't seen this clip, have you? Oh.
The Tucker clip?
Yes. Okay, so let's play it. I mean, I was so mad. I was like, I'm going to punch the wall. Like, that's how mad I am.
He had a 12-year-old boy on the operating table. And he'd been shot. It had gone through his aorta. He was dying. He was bleeding. They couldn't stop the bleeding. So they asked for my help. I went in there. I couldn't stop it either, by which time his clotting had all gone wrong. This happens in severe injuries. So he was bleeding out from everywhere, and he died on the operating table under our hands. Awful. I mean, you can imagine, 12-year-old. And his family told us, had come with him, that he had been sent by... These were all starving. They're all very weak. So the young teenage boys are the ones who are sent out because they're the strongest to get the food. And he'd been shot by an Israeli soldier there. Why? And they'd witnessed this. Well, I can't speculate any better than anyone else as to why this is happening. What I can do is I can document what I saw, and I can document what I heard from, and it was a similar story from all the victims' families, from those that survived, from the victims themselves, from Gazan healthcare workers who went to these food sites in order to get food for their families. They all described the same things, how these young teenage boys were being shot by Israeli soldiers. They had noticed in the ER how there were different body parts being targeted on different days at the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation food distribution points. And other emergency room doctors and nurses I knew corroborated this, that 19 young teenage boys had all come in one day, all of whom had been shot in the head and neck. Nowhere else, just the head and neck. Another day, they came in predominantly with chest injuries. Another day, they came in predominantly with abdominal gunshot wounds. And we noticed this. I started speaking to my fellow surgeons in the operating theatres, and we all noticed this pattern as well. On one day, the Saturday before I left Nassau Hospital to come home to England, 4 young teenage boys were brought in, all of whom had been shot in the testicles, just the testicles, nowhere else. And the pattern of injuries that we all witnessed was so striking that it was clearly beyond coincidental. And it seemed to us like there was a game of target practice.
There was a game of target practice on kids, these psycho effing people. Like, I have to say something, okay?
I heard about this. I saw reporting on this. They even had drones they were testing the accuracy of, and
and
sniper drones.
It is a thing that this effing country does for the longest time now. And I always avoid saying country as Israel is doing it, right? I'm done with that because these are the same people. They supported, Abby Martin said this not so long ago. She said, Israelis have freer media than we do. And that's true. They know exactly what's happening. They are cheering for this because not every culture is created equal. Not every culture is created equal. These are monsters. These people all together, entire Israel, is the effing problem. And people who support this, again, they have free media, and some of them absolutely hate Netanyahu, but they support the opposition who's worse than Netanyahu. So yes, these people are demons. I'm no longer afraid to say that. Entire country of Israel is a demon, and they need to be dealt with. And we seem to not only go out there and deal with the problem, we seem to aid the problem and multiply them even more. I'm done with this. I'm done with this psychotic behavior. I'm done with these people. Next time I meet somebody in the street and he says, I'm an Israeli, I'm going to count to 5 and I'm going to warn him to move the other way or he's going to get bit. That's how I think. I'm going to give them 5-second countdown to get out of my sight before they're going to get it. This is where I am with my feelings as a citizen and what I watch.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm done as well watching a government do what first of all, this doctor has really, from what I can see, no political agenda, no side to take. He's just a doctor, right? And
British doctor. Not even a Palestinian, or he's a British doctor.
Exactly. And it's, this is not about a people and it's not about a religion. I don't think it's just their government, right? And the government of I call them Boston, but the government of Boston, the government of Israel, we're watching them, our money fund the corrupt actions, and now we're watching it unfold in Lebanon. Right.
Yes.
And this is a sloppy but very agendized government that is using the funding. And we mentioned this before the show as we were talking, the cash money that we're sending over there, the taxes that we pay that we're sending over there in foreign aid, the businesses that are being built there in cash. It feels like something bigger is coming and nobody's holding them accountable. And I feel like the deep state, the global deep state, the ones that actually control everything, they are all in on it and setting this precedent that we're going to do what we need to do over here in the Middle East. Ain't nobody going to say shit. And if you do, we're going to cut you off or do something. Right.
Exactly.
So there's no accountability. And every normal American across the political spectrum would probably agree for the most part now that we've seen how this is all unfolded, right? So the money we've sent $20 billion, and I think we're just renewed for another 100 billion or something like that, right? And we've sent 390 billion, I think, over the last few decades.
Yeah, we keep
so
saying
there's a law, the Lehigh law, I think it's called, that actually says we cannot fund units that commit gross human rights violations, but we don't enforce it, right? That is not that is what it was there for, and that's our law. We have a law for that. It's spelled Leahy, Lehigh law. And so because that is a US law, it needs to be enforced and it needs to be looked at. But the problem is our political system is so bought out, and it goes back to what you're saying earlier, that the government of Boston, they are particularly in Israel. We might as well say Israel. The government of Israel, you're saying you're not free. Yeah, I know I'm not free on YouTube, Elizabeth.
Not just YouTube, thanks. Try challenge them outside of YouTube. Let's say if we're going to end up without, bars.
I've been challenging so far. It's been fine, but we'll see what happens. So now tie it to the doctor, because his biggest points are the strongest evidence for why the accountability is overdue, right? He's not Hamas. He's an Oxford doc. He's as a cancer professor, I think, who I looked into him a little bit when you were before the show. And he described an 8-year-old with no anesthesia getting injured, an 11-year-old who's, I think it was 11-year-old, surgery succeeded, and who died because there was no food to heal her.
Yeah.
A pattern at the aid sites, right? There all kinds of stuff at the aid sites. One boy's shot, in the head and the testicles, so this has been common reporting now, where I've known about this for over a year, and so this is where I think, I would say being dealt with, it sounds like vengeance, and vengeance is what people will quote back as like whatever, but vengeance is what we're looking for, is accountability. That's the vengeance that we need, or somehow to stop the funding, right? Stop the funding that allowed what the surgeon to see, right? One of these.
Honestly, I think the funding is for this. That's why they won't stop the funding, thanks. Because that's the goal. The goal is cleanse Gaza, take over Gaza, and build whatever they want to build there. That's the goal.
Right. And that leads into my prediction on the New World Order, and what they're going to be doing is, look, if we look at how much money has gone over there, how much their economy has increased as a result of us, and then their democratic society, the way that they are building everything with the US's help. And it's not just the US, but it's not just the money, but it's the people inside the US that are bought out by the money we're sending over there. They're getting it back, and it's going into their pockets. So they have every self-interest to basically help build Israel into a country or a state that is going to be the center of trade in the Middle East, in the EU, to Asia, because of its location. And then if you bring Ukraine into the fold, because Baron Coleman, when I was on his show, he asked me, he says, well, how does this all work when it comes to agriculture? And I said, it's easy. Ukraine. There's a reason why we've kept Ukraine in the fold for so long,
100%.
right? It's because of the agriculture. 25% of the agriculture globally comes from Ukraine. So if you look at a global map, actually, should I pull up the global map so we can look at it and see how?
Yeah, put it in our.
Yeah. Let me.
But yes, I mean, this Ukraine plot was spoken about even when I was little. Right out being a Soviet country, they were talking about Ukraine and how it was part of a big plan and this Khazarian freaking empire and all of that. So it's true. Yeah. Should I bring it up?
Yeah, you can bring it up. Okay, so let's go to that area over there. Is it going to take me there? Okay, so we're going over to Israel right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so first, if we look, okay, so this whole area, this is where we're seeing this Gaza, right? And you have this bank here. All of this, there's a reason why they're pushing out all Lebanon, Syria's under all of this for the last however long, and now Lebanon, we have They've been talking about Turkey as of recently. Okay, Egypt now is already on the, basically.
Turkey's in the way. That's why I bet that Turkey is going
exactly.
to be, whether they want it or not, they're going to be their next target. And that's where they're going to eat it, because Turkey is one of the strongest NATO countries and they will eat shit there. I guarantee you that.
That's why I want to show this map. It's because if you look at how there's just no green, that can be manufactured over the next 50 to 100 years with cloud seeding. But especially down here, okay, so how would you get your food? Well, Ukraine is right here. And this is where most of the world, especially in the EU, you've got Romania, which is corrupt government. You have Bulgaria, which is corrupt government. So you have all of this, Turkey, which needs to, that they're going to.
That's why they're trying to oust the Erdogan, because Erdogan is not part of the globalist agenda. And they want Turkey. They need Turkey. They absolutely need it for transportation, right? So, and go up to Ukraine. Here's what Vladimir Putin did. Thank you for that to Vova. He took a bunch of very profitable parts of Ukraine. So they are not going to get that at all. So
so that's the thing is that's why they're fighting so hard. It's weird how when we watch the government, the United States government, how we battle these things. It's like we never go full on our own. It's like we're funding these proxy wars and keeping them we don't care. I think the government just doesn't care how many dies at the end of the day, because they're planning to ultimately turn this whole area, all of this, all the way down, all in here, all over here, Iraq, Syria, Israel, Egypt, northern Africa, all in here. And then Turkey, all of this, all around the coastal area, and Ukraine, and turn it into exactly what they want, I believe, is a central new trading centerpiece where they have a new form of currency. Where that's what I think is happening, where we send all of this money in cash to Israel, along with the corruption that can be done with cash, like you mentioned earlier. But this is prime real estate, especially once you start getting into Turkey, and then you start getting onto the inside of the Black Sea. All of this around here, you can move on boats. It would be a lot cheaper as well to transfer the food and agriculture from up here. And then obviously, there's already been disruption in Romania, Serbia, Kosovo, Bulgaria. So
they're trying to get this.
It puts a really nice picture, so you can actually see what are we doing. And if you look, well, what are we doing? We are literally
alternative roads, right? So go to the alternative, through Syria, go to Armenia, see that other Armenia, Azerbaijan, no, opposite side, opposite.
Oh, yeah.
Go down. See that, Georgia? Down.
Where am I at?
You're kind of close. So go down. Yep. Close up. Armenia, Azerbaijan. See that alternative. So Armenia, they have a globalist puppet there. And Azerbaijan is theirs in a way as well. It is heavily influenced by Turkey, but it's still its own entity, and they have a lot of Zionist influence there. So this is their alternative route for energy, by the way. So this is where they are trying to set their.
This is Iran, by the way. If people don't know, this is northern Iran.
They're avoiding Iran. That's the whole point. So they are trying to avoid Iran completely because they couldn't get it, and now they are negotiating heavily with Azerbaijan and Armenia to take their energy through Azerbaijan and Armenia, because they cut the Russia out, they cut the Iran completely off, right? So they need a ground. They have to move somewhere. Azerbaijan and Armenia are now their new puppets, right? They couldn't get Georgia. They tried to conduct a revolution in Georgia. Georgians turned out to be much smarter. They didn't allow them to. So Georgia is the only independent country in the region right now that is governed by itself. It's just how it is. Rest of them are absolute puppets of the globalist government. And they will be successful because if one route doesn't work, this will. And they're already setting up this way. What's his name? VP J.D. Vance was in Armenia and Azerbaijan striking deals because that's their alternative energy route without Iran. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're gonna
Yeah,
leave
this
Iran
is
out.
this
Yes.
is a really great actually setup for them if they're doing what I
Yep.
think. Baron Coleman thinks I'm 100% right. You even said earlier, you said you agree. You think this is,
Yeah.
and also like then you have your trade routes to go to the EU. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And this whole channel here, all the way to Gibraltar, can then just go all the way to South Africa. I mean, wherever, you know. So
It's like
it is
perfect
actually kind of
ground.
an ideal. Yeah, exactly. It's perfect ground
Yep.
to take over, and it's right in the middle of the world, you know. So it's
Yep.
and I think they might just leave us over here, you know what I mean? Build a bunch of data centers and just
Well,
leave
that's
our
why
asses
they're
here.
building data centers so
You know
that
what I
you
mean?
can live in shit while they bring Zionist beautiful entity over that, and you can deal with the CO2s and all the terrible shit that data centers will bring. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So seeing that and understanding like we're not just doing this, like I don't think the government is just doing it to help Israel. I think that they're doing it because they have an agenda. If you think about what's been happening since Operation Clean Break in 1996, they wrote it out on paper. When Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu came into office, they had these governments that they were planning to overthrow. Actually, I'm going to share my screen again. Operation Clean Break, so that people can see what I'm talking about.
Yes.
There's another document that goes with it. So this is Wikipedia if you want to pull up here. So Operation Clean Break, I made a whole live stream. I think I've done 2 on this. A new strategy for securing the realm. All right. This is a policy document that was prepared in 1996. Oops, sorry. Prepared in, okay, sorry. I didn't share the screen. A Clean Break, a new strategy for securing the realm. A policy document that was prepared in 1996 by a study group led by Richard Pearl for Benjamin Netanyahu, the then Prime Minister of Israel. The report explained a new approach to solving Israel's security problems in the Middle East with an emphasis on Western values. It has been criticized for advocating policy of removal. So what are they doing? They are actually going in and they are one by one taking over all of the countries that we have seen attacked. And then Iran is the final one, right? So let me see if it shows exactly the order of what it was supposed to be. Yeah, so let me see if I can find the countries. Operation Clean Break. The document that I had found with it, there's another one. If someone in the chat could remind me. It's called the Renew. It's like something that happened a few months after that. They made this article. It was like a booklet that they wrote, and it explains how America is going to be involved in all of this, right? But anyways, they are literally taking Lebanon. They want to do Syria, Iran, Iraq. All of it's on paper, right? And through proxy warfare as well. So the same thing that we're seeing was written 32 years ago, 30 years ago, actually, exactly. I wish I could remember the name of that article. Give me 1 second. I'll pull it up if you want to talk on that real quick. So what is the American Revolution book that goes with Clean Break? I think it starts with, let me see if I can find it real quick.
Yeah, I think I'm going to look at the chat real quick. Guys, we'll get to your questions in a second. I think we're like almost 2 hours. Look at us, Danks. Look at us. We're crushing it. We're fighting. We're putting out our dirty laundry out there. It's so funny. It's like somebody said, Adolf knew it all or something like that. You guys are hilarious. Oh, man.
Damn. Yeah, I have it somewhere. Oh, the American Crisis, was that it?
I don't know.
Maybe not. Okay, well, I thought I have it somewhere, but
yeah, somebody says 7 countries, but that's a different. Yeah, so 7 countries in 5 years was a real thing, and they wanted to do that. But Danks is talking about something else.
Yeah, see, I can actually, if I just come here and I'll go to this page right here, say what was the ultimate agenda of Clean Break? While I look for this somewhere else, try to find that bookmark. So it says here, let me look at this bookmark real quick and then I'll read it. So okay, so this one says what is the ultimate agenda of Clean Break? The report itself. All right.
Yeah.
The immediate
Guys, do you wanna
diplomatic
see my dog?
objective.
Sorry, they want to
Let's
see my
see.
dog.
It's
Duty,
okay.
come here.
Show them.
Duty, come here. Come here.
The
Duty.
authors envision remaking the Middle East map to remove all existential threats to Israel. So this was designed as a sequential geopolitical cascade. Oh, look at the puppy. That dog barks like crazy. Iraq is phase one.
Boy,
The absolute priority was the removal of Saddam Hussein. Syria and Lebanon were number two. The Iraq weakened is with Iraq, it weakened. And then Israel would use proxy forces and direct preemptive strikes to isolate Syria and strip Lebanon of any anti-Israel resistance. And then Iran, deemed the final frontier. The ultimate end game was the rollback. If anybody thinks that we're going to be in and out of Iran at all over the next 5 years, you're insane. This took 30 years to get to. You think they're just going to bounce on Iran after, oh, well, little things didn't go the way we planned it? No. This document is a government recognized strategy document and dossier, and it has other documents that go with it that I've been killing myself to find this whole time. Yeah. But it is an American Israeli.
Are you talking about Wolfowitz doctrine? Because that's different.
No. I'm trying to.
It's not a Samoyed, guys. I'm looking at, and not Great Pyrenees. It's actually an American Eskimo. So very similar to Samoyed, but a mini version of Samoyed. They're like the same dog, but it's kind of smaller in size.
This is going to drive me nuts. I'm going to have to find it while we're talking, because I know it was in one of my last videos. If you want to move to some of the chats, then we can move to super chats.
Do it.
And then if I find it, I'll find it.
We've got some super chats. We've got some new members. And this is you, Danks.
Do you want to read them while I look for this for me?
Jewelry, usury is money. Religion of monetary thieves. Allegedly, maybe, perhaps. Yes,
what's up, Philippe? Yeah, bro.
Yeah, I agree. Totally.
Usury was actually the number one. Look, I'm not saying that what Hitler did was good. All I'm saying is that was actually the number one reason he started his whole thing.
You know what people don't know? Have you guys heard of Sassoon family ever? That is something we need to do an episode about. Sassoon family was a Jewish family that pretty much poisoned entire China. They caused the opium epidemic in China. I mean, these people they were bankers and traders, and it's a long story, but Sassoon family is like something that needs to be investigated pretty, deeply. So,
I found it.
You found it?
I found it, yeah. Let me...
Okay. Well, why don't you show us that first, and then I can continue with the questions.
Read another one. I'm going to make sure I pull up the actual pamphlet.
All right. Israel has invested $50 billion in China. I actually don't know if it's 50 billion, but Israel has invested in China, and China has invested in Israel as well. So yeah, that relationship is cozy for sure. Let me see. Easy Money. Hi, I recognize you. Thank you so much. You always donate so, graciously, and I really, really appreciate it. Thank you. Just a little something to help for the beautiful work you're producing. Thank you. I appreciate it. Danks and I seriously work like our asses off to get this stuff out there. So Deep on Air, I think this is yours, right? Keep us.
Yeah, D on Air. What's up, D? Keep up the great work. You two are a great duo on these live streams. Knowledgeable and well-spoken. We appreciate it. Thank you so much, D.
I appreciate it. It's a scene problem. Yeah, it is a scene. Israel has a scene problem for sure. I agree. All right. I'm out on this one, thanks, but wanted to show you my support before dipping out. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
All right. Next.
Okay, here, I'll share this real quick. Let me share my screen. All right, let's share this. Okay, go ahead.
Do you want, share? 1 second. Here we go.
Yeah, I'm gonna, yeah. So first let's show this. So if I scroll up here, so this is rebuilding America's defenses. So this goes together with
Right.
Operation Clean Break. All right, rebuilding America's defense. I never knew this existed. I stumbled on it when I was researching Clean Break, and so this is actually laying out how we are going to be involving in the new 2000s moving forward. All right. So this was established less than a year after Operation Clean Break had been implemented and given to Benjamin Netanyahu. So the project for the New American Century is a nonprofit educational organization whose goal is to promote American global leadership. The project is an initiative of the New Citizens Project. So they go through and they explain like all the reasons why the West is the best. And then it kind of starts going into, well, what are the key findings? Why another defense? This is like a 90-page dossier. And so if we scroll in here, the introduction says, our concern, well, the project for this, blah, 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 our concerns were reinforced. So this pamphlet is based off of concerns that the world isn't going to be what they want it to be, an American style global one world agenda. Our concerns were reinforced by two congressionally mandated defense studies that appeared soon thereafter, the Pentagon's Defense Review and more National Defense Panel. Both studies assumed that U.S. defense budgets would remain flat or continue to shrink. As a result, the defense plans and recommendations outlined were fashioned with such budget constraints in mind. So they go through and explain, like everything was written down. You want to see how much money, how many billions, hundreds of billions we're spending in the $1 trillion in the government for military spending? It comes back to this dossier. And, and they explain it actually. All right. Or they even explain the alternative. If we don't spend money on this, if we don't go to this country and do that, this is what we'll end up seeing. So they drew it out with Clean Break. And this dossier, I'll put it in my description.
I was about to say, can you send me the link so I put it on the video, like right into the description? Just send me a text message.
Yeah, I'll read this last part and then I'll send it out. So this report this key findings, all right? This report proceeds from the belief that America should seek to preserve and extend its position of global leadership by maintaining the preeminence of the U.S. military forces. Today, the United States has unprecedented strategic opportunity and it faces no immediate great power challenge. It is blessed with wealthy, powerful, and democratic allies in every part of the world. It is in the midst of the longest economic expansion in history, and its political and economic principles are almost universally embraced. At no time in history has the international security order been as conducive to American interests and ideals. The challenge for the coming century is to preserve the coming century. So from 2000 to 2100, okay? This is what this pamphlet is made for. The challenge for the coming century is to preserve and enhance this American peace. Yet, unless the United States maintains sufficient military strength, this opportunity will be lost. And in fact, over the past decade, the failure to establish a security responsive to new realities and to provide adequate resources for the full range of missions needed to exercise U.S. global leadership has placed the American peace at a growing risk. This report attempts to define those requirements, and in particular, it goes into this. And this is, once you understand Operation Clean Break, once you understand rebuilding the defenses of the United States, these pamphlets, and you read them, everything makes perfect sense. And that's what got me to where I'm at today with my New World Order. But
it is a real thing. And they've been implementing this before 2030, Danks. This is another thing people don't know. That was Agenda 21. And I'm going to be posting about this Agenda 21 and what it is on my channel, like in the closest future. But it was a real estate grab. Agenda 21 was a real estate and land grab. And from that, they moved on to Agenda 2030, which was like already international, right? Rosa Koire, look up, guys. Rosa Koire is the one who broke the story about Agenda 21. So crazy stuff. But let's get to the questions. Yours as well, Danks, I believe. Oh,
Yeah, we did
read
that one.
Sorry,
Yeah.
my bad. My bad. It's the same problem. How about this one? This is yours as well. Hold on one second.
Shirley posted a Portland harassment video. A green sniper laser hits the aggressor's chest. Cops in parking garage were protecting him.
Yeah, I
didn't see
remember that. Shirley actually posted a lot of videos before he, in my opinion, before he became the propagandist. And I think I think you're right on that. Thanks. They grabbed him after they saw like that he was already there as a teenager and kind of grabbing the attention, right?
Well, he's also Mormon, right? So don't
Yeah.
forget, the CIA works with Mormon directly.
Oh my gosh, you have no idea. They're the biggest recruiting ground for sure. We read that one
that one,
too. So God gave them King Saul.
Solid.
Yeah. Hi, Danks and lovely mods.
What's up, Christy? Thanks for the super. Good to see you.
People leave countries because of Boston.
Mm.
People leave
Boston. You think that Boston is my code word for Israel? Do you think? What do you think about that?
What does Boston has to do with anything?
What do you think? You think that that actually is interesting? I think it. You know, I've said this before, and I'm not against Israel. I'm not an anti-Semite. In fact, I am a Semite.
You're not against Israel?
I mean, I'm not against the people that are regular people that are just living there. The government, yes, of course. What I'm trying to say is that, and the Jews in general, right? I'm not against them. I don't believe in their ideology.
So
I think
Jews are not Israel. Jews are.
I'm not against the people that are living there or the Jewish religion. But let me get to my point. My point is, do you think that they created the land of Israel to have them all go to because they kept disrupting and creating issues around the world? And do you think that people have fled their countries because of Israel, or because of the acts of people that are now living in Israel, like the synagogue of Satan people? Do you think people? I'm asking you. Yeah. Do you think people leave countries because of Jews?
Yeah, partially. Yeah. Again, my view of Israel is slightly different. I don't think Israel controls us. I think our deep state controls Israel, and only then Israel controls us. Israel is a completely useless entity without our money and support. And then money and support comes from the United States, and Israel is a state because of the United States. So I think it's a triangle. It is not A point to B. Israel controls America. That's it. No, it is deep state controls Israel, and Israel controls our Congress.
Yeah,
That's how I see
100%.
it. But yes, they are.
It's fucking bullshit.
Yeah,
I did a live stream the other day that proved that lobbying in general, kills people. Right?
Yeah.
Lobbying is murder. When you add up all of the things that lobbying adds up to, people die because of it. And this is happening in many different avenues, from the big tobacco lobbying, pharmaceutical lobbying, airplane lobbying, whatever, like Israel lobbying. And so now we're just seeing more of that.
And it's Biden who said, you know what, if there was no Israel, we would have created Israel, or something like that. He said we would have created one. Well, why? Because again, it's a deep state entity. It's a candy for deep states. Their tool that they are using. But Israel by itself is a nobody. They have no power by itself. So, okay, next one. Israel has been controlling us for years. It's bad. We just talked about it. It's kind of our deep state controlling Israel, and through Israel, they are controlling our Congress. But the problem we're facing in the US now are problems because of our government, yes, is implementing Stasi tactics. Absolutely.
Yes. I did my last live stream was on Stasi.
So
it's like, I made a short video. I'll send it to you about, there was this Stasi woman that the government was incentivizing people to snitch on their neighbors and their family. And this one lady was speaking out. Her name was Vera. Vera was speaking out against, the regime and the Stasi. And her husband was an informant for like a long time. I forget how many years, like a decade or longer, and ended up, it's just not good. So that's what we're turning it. The Stasi was a surveillance state, but it was done with people, right? It was done with people. So the difference now is that our surveillance state, our version of Stasi for the government, is much more sophisticated, and it's better because every cell phone is a surveillance device. Every camera is a surveillance device. Every IP camera, I should say, any camera that's hooked up to the internet. So we are living in a Stasi time, and
fascism. I always say, like, what we are seeing is less of communism and more fascism. And people can tell the difference because of the CIA propaganda for years, how they first aided communists, then they turned around and against them because of Stalin, because Stalin was not their puppet. I break this down in my globalist episode, how like they brought communism on Russia. Communists hated Russians. They brought communism on Russia. And then when Stalin took over and turned the game on them, because Stalin was not part of the globalist agenda, he was his own kind of, crazy. So then they turned on communism and aided fascism. And it's like crazy psychopathic maniacs. Yeah. So next one.
We follow the tea room.
Yeah, the devil you know is better than devil you don't, as relates to economic systems. Elizabeth still rocks. Love you, Danks. The problem is that evil can infiltrate any system. So true. See,
absolutely,
I agree. It's mostly people in charge, not the system itself. Even though, just like every religion and every culture, like not every culture is created equal. Not every system is created equal, and not every religion is created equal. So yeah, I agree with you. Very wise. Ultimate goal, one world government, population reduction, the total control. Yes, and we are successfully following those footsteps.
Yeah, I don't know why they would want to do population reduction unless it's just that they know that they're going to have to take care of a bunch of people. That could be the only thing. There's plenty of space on this planet. You could fit everybody inside the state of Texas, this whole world.
Well,
you know what I mean? So
but resources are finite, right? So we don't have enough resources, and they are now seeing that. And that's why we are going to lab-grown shit and stuff like that. And I think they know that it's just not infinite. All right. Just throwing my 2 cents randomly. Current admin causing international collapse of US dollar in order to activate digital currencies. You are right. That is happening. So there is a war on dollar for sure. Yes.
100%. What's up, Julie? Good to see you.
I got lost here. Hold on. Am I missing something? Thanks. Maybe.
So when you're reading the supers, you can actually remove them by hitting the star. And so every time I read a super chat, I remove it, and the star will.
No, we're good. No, I'm good. I found it. Project for a new American country. New American country?
Project for a new American century. Yeah, that's exactly it. I think actually, is it? Yeah, that's the one. No, it's the one. Rebuilding Americans' defenses for the new American century. Yeah.
Thank you, Emmy. I was like, what are we talking about here?
Yeah, NAC.
Okay. Campaign Analytica is the Mike Ultra. So do you mean MK Ultra? MK Ultra of our time. And it's swirled around Brad Parscale?
Brad Parscale is the operator. Oh, we never talked about that. The Brad Parscale is the founder of Clock Tower LLC, which is the company that he runs. The Israeli Ministry Foreign Affairs is funding Salem Media and the integrating the Israeli messaging. We were going to cover Kim Iverson. That's directly tied into Thomas Massey's.
I actually have that video we should play, but now it's about parallel economy and influencers, as he himself says. Yes, that is correct. Isn't that crazy that Charlie Kirk's show is run by Israeli entity now, foreign entity that is controlled by Israel? That's crazy.
Yeah, the chief strategy officer is a foreign agent to Israel.
Yeah, just showing you some love to Elizabeth. Love your work as well. Thank you so much. Love you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
That's for you.
Anne Marie, what's up? Member 4 months. Danks, new handle name on the tube. You know why I changed it? Sending another super chat after this review. Love you. I don't know why you changed it, but I see. Okay. All right. Love you too.
Go Max!
What's up, Keith?
Yes. Go Max.
By the way, we have Saturday live streams for members. It's only 99 cents on my channel, so you can come hang out with us. We're going to be doing AI, learning how to research, how to do some light coding with AI so that you can learn how to like make graphs and charts and stuff with Claude. So if you don't have Claude, I recommend you get Claude and join us on Saturday, 10 a.m. Pacific.
Perfect.
And get a membership.
Yeah.
Anne Marie, 1999. Hello, friend. Great job. Seriously, I have learned so much from you all that otherwise no one would hear about or see on the news at all. Keep digging. I'll keep doing what I can from digging over here. Love you both. Thank you, Anne Marie. It's always so good to see you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for giving us hope. What do they kill press? Yeah, I mean, it's a big deal with media today and everything that's happening, guys. I've noticed there is a very calculated shift right now from the deep state funding these so-called independent media channels. In reality, it's not independent. And I've got somebody on my radar that I'm going to bring up. I'm not going to say his name right now because I don't want people to go and like search unless we have like real documentation as to why this person is funded by the intelligence and the deep state. And he's one of the biggest ones. And I can't wait to dive into his career, who he is, how he ended up in the media. And yeah, I'm going to kill that. Like,
you know who I would like to, we should organize soon is me, you, and John Kiriakou. I think it'd be a really good conversation.
I had John yesterday on my live. Oh my gosh, people, we had a ton of people watching and people love John.
Oh yeah, everybody. I love John. I feel like I know John. We only talked one time, I think.
Yeah, John
barely
is a
talked
friend of mine, and like every single time John comes to visit or I go to him, it becomes like a 5-hour conversation. That man is a walking encyclopedia. Like he can talk about anything. And yeah, some things we cannot talk here, but yeah, let's do a live with him. And I'll tell you
we should do for next Thursday.
Yes, let's do it. I'll tell you a funny story about John. So one time we're driving in Virginia. I lived in Virginia working on a project in DC actually. And he takes me to see like these other parts of Virginia that I've never seen. And he's like huge DC fan. He loves Washington DC. He was born to be an agent, to be an officer. And he tells me this CIA story. I'm thinking that, okay, if you're telling me this, then that must mean that I can tell the world, right? Like, because he didn't say, don't say this, like, you know, it's like secret or whatever. He never told me that. So I went ahead telling people this story, like everyone I could find, because it's a great story. And then one day I'm like, dude, you have to come and talk about this story on my channel. And he's like, what? No. It's like a top secret. Like, what are you talking? I'm like, what? So it's not like a top secret as like intelligence, but it's mostly like secret because of, you know, because
I get it.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, it's not illegal, but he can't just talk about it because some people are involved and he can't. So I was like, yeah, you'd have been great if you told me that before, but sure. Anyway, let's continue. We read that one. One new member. How will they use the UFO disclosure PSYOP? I want to have Bob Lazar on this on my show. I'm prepping for it right now. So maybe we should do one with Bob Lazar. What do you think?
Yeah, that'd be interesting. I'd be down for that. I followed his work for a long time. I mean, I think the UFO disclosure PSYOP, it could be, I mean, you know, we have history to look back at when it comes to Bluebeam.
Yeah.
These are all real programs, you know, and they tried already. And this is what I was talking about earlier in Cuba. This was in the 70s. They actually put an image in the sky of Jesus and they tried to create like a revolt. And so like you could use this UFO disclosure stuff to do a lot of different things, right? So it could be anything from creating some kind of revolts against something, it create fear. You could use it to create a one world. I mean, it is literally probably the most powerful weapon they have when it comes to using technology to trick Americans. And also it might not. It could even be some might be real. You know, we might have some realness, but like the fact that our life hasn't changed much, even if it's been around for millennia, they are going. Why do you think? Okay, this is the thing. Let me say this. If they are aliens, they've been here. Okay. What would make it different now between the last 1,000 years, 500,000 years? Why would our lives need to change because we know about it? You see what I'm saying? So there's a purpose behind it. And the fact that they've been here, if they are truly here as aliens, I think of them as interdimensional beings, if that's true, or old technology that's been in this world for a long time that got lost and is still flying around. And they can use that to install like all the things I just said. So life shouldn't change just because we know about it. You see what I'm saying? But they'll create a reason to make change.
Yeah. So I absolutely agree with you.
Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. And we are in agreement with that. There's a lot of shady stuff going on with this, like disappearance of scientists and so on. Somebody said, matey, should I finish the live or back up?
Oh, what's up, Dale? We're about to wrap up. You can probably start from the beginning. It was a good one. We had a debate.
Oh, yeah. We fought like
We
crazy.
debated about communism.
Yeah.
She likes communism.
Wait, when did I say that?
You made it very seem like you were down for
unfairly.
communism.
Don't put words in my mouth. I said my grandparents liked communism and they lived happily in it. I didn't. I'm Wild Wild West girl, where it's like you're smart enough, you'll get ahead. If you're not, you're just not. And that's what I said. I said I prefer this, but you cannot demonize communism because there are many people who love it, like it, and demonizing communism is a CIA propaganda
But
spent billions on. And in reality,
you can't tell people that have never experienced non-communism that they of course they're gonna love it. They don't know anything else. That's the thing, right?
Again, I just gave you examples of things. I'm gonna fight that.
Well, I'm just saying, like, do you think that people in China, if they knew that life here was this way,
they know they like,
and they actually lived it, you think they would
people
prefer China?
Yes.
They probably would.
There are a ton of Chinese people who do not want to live here. And do you know how many Chinese people travel to Europe every single year?
Yeah, there's a lot.
And buy a bunch of shit. And what pisses me off is they buy German made. And Germans, due to their capitalism / socialism or whatever they, in reality, oligarchism, due to that, they have to buy Chinese crap, $2 crap, because they can't afford real made in Germany anymore, while Chinese people can afford made in Germany. It's sad, but it's true. So that's what I was saying. I never said I like communism. I said, no, don't demonize something you never lived and don't know about, right? And I will never know about it because I personally never lived in communism. I only know what my grandparents tell me they had, and I don't have that luxury today, and I'm pissed about it. You know, I would love to take off for 3 months on a vacation in a nice place, paid, you know, fully with food and everything. Like, please give me that life, you know? So anyway,
I was looking through my passport to see if I got a new passport since I went to, so I don't have the stamps. I have some here, but
the Americans, yes. So love listening to you guys. Elizabeth, have you ever watched The Americans? I have. It's a very heavily written script. It's a funny show, though. I mean, I enjoyed it. It's a great show about Cold War spies created by a real spy. Changed my thoughts on USSR. Yes, that it is. How do I explain? It has its reality moments, but it's still heavily Hollywood it's heavily influenced by Hollywood. How do I say that in the right way? But yes, I like the show a lot, actually. And that was another thing that
don't get her started on the USSR. We're gonna be here for another 2 hours.
No, I mean, they can watch my episode on USSR and how life was about it. And I'm about to release one with Stanislav. We got together to talk about just that. And he always tells Americans, guys, you need to differentiate between KGB and what it did. You know what KGB was? KGB was Homeland Security. That's it. That's it. It's not CIA style, right? And there's a big differentiations. But anyway, watch that episode. You'll find out what communism was about. Okay, let's continue. If there's any more questions. And guys, do you want us to do an episode about royal families? I think that would be very interesting, no?
The ties of royal families and how the bloodlines and
Yes.
presidents.
Okay.
Bohemian Grove. We should bring Alex Jones on for that one.
Oh my gosh. I
Wouldn't
had
that be good?
Yeah, Alex, go check out my Alex Jones episode on Bohemian Grove, guys. It's on my channel. It's absolutely crazy. You know, he got groped multiple times while he was doing that.
No, I didn't know that.
Oh my gosh, you should check it out. But anyway, I'm going to do a quick story before we leave about royal family. So I actually met a princess once. During my acting days, I was on Sundance Film Festival, and a friend of mine got to know this woman. She was not a girl, like she was late 30s, like a woman. And he brings her over, and he's like, hey, you got to meet I'm not going to say who it is, but it's a real princess. And you're going to, you have to meet this girl. Like, she's smart, she's amazing, I like her, blah, blah, blah. We do not know who she is because she's not English royal family. They are the most known, right? But people don't know that other countries in Europe also have royal families. Like, for example, Luxembourg has one, and so on. She was from one of those families. She was a real princess. And we spent the entire night with this girl, clubbing, moving from one club to another. And we get very tight for like 2 days in a row during this festival. And then she goes, I'm a princess. And I'm like, sure. I'm taking it as like, I'm a princess, like a girl, whatever. I'm like, sure, yeah, I got it. Great, you are a princess, like pink, all of that. She's like, no, I'm a real princess, like an actual princess. And I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, I belong to one of the royal families. And I'm like, oh my God. And why this was a shock. Day before, we were walking down the main street, and I trashed entire English royal family. I called them psychos. I called them Nazis. I said, this psycho family is literally draining England's wealth and don't pay taxes. They are not held accountable or anything. So she's like quietly listening to me, and she goes, I don't know. They are not that bad. I'm sure they are not that bad. I'm like, yes, they are. They are pretty bad. And then next day she tells me I'm actually a princess from this country. So I Googled, and turns out she's a real princess. And yeah, from their country. So that was terrible. Yeah, and funny. But we should do an episode about it. We should do an episode about Diana's death too.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about.
Yes. We've got some new members, guys. Hello. And I think we are pretty much done for today.
Sounds good. Yeah, good show. Let us know in the chat, how did you, put a fire emoji if you enjoyed it, if you want to see more of this. Yeah, I think, so what I'm going to be doing is actually, I'm going to be doing my live streams. I'm going to start scheduling specific days, because I need to spend more time coding. And the problem is, in the morning, I run all my energy out on content. So you might be getting a lot more videos from me moving forward. I'll still be doing my live streams with Elizabeth on Thursdays, Saturday members only, Saturday night with Bays, and make sure you come join us Saturday nights with Bays. And then I might pick one more day during the week, maybe two, but I definitely need to put more time into Club Vatra. There's a lot being developed there, and I just need to spend more time on that. So I think also it's good for growth to make more videos 10 to 20 minutes long. People can spend the time watching them, and it's not so long. So I will be, just want to leave a note on that.
Guys, the same with me. I'm going to have Joe Kent next week. I'm so excited about Joe. And I'm going to ask him about those pilots. Remember when these pilots all of a sudden disappeared from Limelight, and the ones that we rescued, so-called rescue mission and all that? I'm going to ask him about his exit from the government, and many, many more questions. I'm very excited about that episode. And yes, Helga, is that your name, Helga? Please do Diana.
Shabba Labba Ding Dong. She's an OG in here. Really good. Dankster, big fan of Baron. I've seen her in all the chats, and always good to see.
Is that your puppy? So cute.
It's a cute dog. Is that a retriever?
Yeah, golden retriever maybe. Yeah. Thanks, guys. We really appreciate you. Love you guys. Without your support, none of us would be here. So thank you. Yes, I will. What was that? Joe Kent? Yes, it was Joe Kent. So he's gonna be on my show next week.
I'm working on getting Thomas Massey too. That's in the works.
Amazing.
Love to have him. I told him I'd come to him, or I'd fly him out, or do it on the internet. So I'm just waiting to hear back. We'll see.
Yeah, he does a lot on virtual, so he would probably have it. Yeah. So yeah, excited about that. I'm also gonna have Tucker Carlson's brother on Tuesday, I believe. So everyone loves Uncle Buckley. So call him Uncle Buckley if you're like my followers. He loves when you do that. So just call him Uncle Buckley. Yeah. Okay, we're done. Thank you, guys.
All right, thanks. Appreciate all the support. Go to clubvatra.com/danksterintel, and maybe soon we'll get Elizabeth on there. All right. Cheers. Love you all. Peace.